Hey tankers, and welcome back to World of Tanks with PR154. First, an apology to followers on YouTube and Twitch. We have had to do a bit of a slowdown in the Twitch and YouTube content. I'm just getting over the coronavirus at the moment, so do bear with us and do forgive us our sins in this particular video. Now today we are following a couple of members of the Flying Squirrels clan. We have CEO Manti Uranus and Arkenstone. I'll try and say that one with a straight face. And they are both in the Tier 7 Premium American Heavy Tank King Tiger captured. Now this is a Tier 7 vehicle as opposed to the Tiger 2 at Tier 8 that it kind of bears a few similarities to, although it has had a few of those characteristics downscaled for tier. For starters, with the turret armour, while you might get 245mm of turret facing on Tiger 2, you're only getting 185mm on King Tiger C, which is, granted, a bit more appropriate for tier. The sides and the top of the turret, as far as deflecting incoming abuse though, are still quite adequate. The upper frontal plate has been reduced from 160mm to 150mm, but that's still allowing you to deflect anything that's penetrating for less than 210mm, so that's quite handy as well. As far as the gun goes, the 88mm on Tiger 2 does hit for 280 hit points of alpha, but penetrates for 203, as does King Tiger C's, but this one only hits for 240. Accordingly, the damage per minute suffers between the reduced alpha and also a slightly longer reload. The premium shells also aren't quite as good as the 88 on the Tiger 2, with a maximum penetration of 237mm, but it certainly makes this tank capable of holding up against over-tiered vehicles, which in this case they are, seeing 8s over 7s. So with that in mind, they've loaded the good stuff straight away, and they've been able to find the IS-3, Tier 8 Soviet heavy tank. They managed to get their first penetration, looking for their second, although the IS-3 is not making terrible use of the hard cover available to it. Still, that is a lot of damage hitting that tank from a lot of different angles. It has really managed to knock out quite a few of its hit points. In fact, it's now on only 74 hit points, but it's able to make its escape nonetheless. Not so much this EBR Hotchkiss, however. It's driven straight into Manticore's line of sight, and they've sent them back to the garage. So with 4 vehicles in tow, they commence the push of the ridgeline, which is something that King Tiger captured isn't terrible at. It does have 8 degrees of gun depression, and its cupola, while still pennable, is not a huge target. Certainly is presenting a smaller target than the Tiger 1 that we see over the other side of the ridge. They're also joined by the M46 Korea. Although we're firing the gold shells, we're still getting a few bounces, lining up for another one. Out gun depressioning the Tiger 1 there somewhat. Their teammate in the VK3002D, however, has pushed forward and left themselves quite exposed there, being knocked out by the Caro P88. Supporting fire from Overwatch at B4 knocked out the Caro in turn, while continued pressure from Manti on the Tiger 1 allowed artillery to deliver the coup de grace. So having made mincemeat of the Tiger 1's superior hit point pool, Manti looks for other opportunities just under the ridgeline. Unfortunately, these enemy vehicles are just a little too far under. So while Manti's platoon mate Arkenstone and the Tiger 1 can keep on trading, Manti will need to reposition if they wish to continue to add to the 1700 hit points of damage collected thus far. So while Manti's relocating, things are heating up in the bowl, where the team's EBR Hotchkiss is able to find and delete the enemy IS-3, which was damaged in that earlier encounter. The EBR is supported in place by a premium Tier 7 Soviet heavy IS-2, although it would appear they've brought guests. A Comet and an ELC even 90 moving in to take full advantage of their low hit point opponents. Shutting down the IS-2, Comet cops a fire starting hit in return for a flame-grilled T-bone from EBR Hotchkiss, taking the kill. More Overwatch fire sees the enemy lose another Scorpion, but it is the enemy team that's in control of the bowl now. The shot trade continues apace on the top side of this flank, with Manti's new position leaving the enemy KV-3 one-shotable for platoon mate Arkenstone. The M46 Korea is now the sole defender of the enemy's interests on the ridgeline now, with combined effect from artillery and Manti's crossfire knocking it out for Manti's second kill of the game. So having taken the high ground, they really need to work out, well, do they want to keep it? And the answer right now is probably not. They probably also don't want to push off it either. The main reason being that bowl encounter before saw an enemy Comet and ELC even 90 survive, and that really gives them the advantage of eyeballs over the 3 friendly heavy tanks that have secured this ridgeline. Unfortunately, this is probably something that the friendly Tiger 1 is not 100% cognizant of, and they've W-keyed their way down the ridge. Arkenstone, the platoon mate, was also not in a great hit point position. They're sitting on just under 500 at the moment. So quite easily you could push 3 tanks into the encounter and lose 2 very quickly by unseen enemies. And unfortunately, that's exactly what's happened to the Tiger 1. The emergence of the ELC even 90 at D5 confirms how untenable this hill position is. As a lot of light tank players would know, from a south side deployment, D5 is the holy grail of light tank positions, enabling the aggressive scout to spot enemy vehicles on the lee side of the hill and shoot them from a concealed position. However, the hill still under contest, it would have given the enemy a game-winning crossfire, and the only way to remedy the problem is to send in your own fast movers to dig it out. But unfortunately for Manti's team, there are none available, so the ELC of 90 is free to do its thing. As Arkenstone dives for the nearest bush, the Scorpion G is knocked out by the premium Tier 8 French Light. Manti has already made some headway back towards the cap and really hoping that their platoon mate will do the same. Unfortunately, Arkenstone's evacuation was not quite fast enough as they receive a battlefield promotion to Spectator. This leaves the Stridsvagn S1 alone on the hill. Manti's return to cap is punctuated by a shower of artillery and a return of the Comet. You know, the one that likes their T-bones flame-grilled. And while Manti will struggle to lay gun on target, the Stridsvagn stragglers' shells land true. Although the scores are tight and it's anyone's game, it is CEO Manticore Uranus's team that are on the back foot. As we speak, they are 1 gun and a fair few hit points short of the enemy's position. Meanwhile, Manti is approaching double the hit points inflicted on the enemy and has plenty more fight left in their premium Tier 7 American heavy tank, the King Tiger captured. We can see the enemy even 90 has been applying some pressure to the cap circle, but has been left in a feeble hit point position thanks to a slapdown from the ISU 122S that's guarding the gate. Now, although the Eastern Peninsula has been a rather quiet front this game, we're now starting to see some carnage developing. A Tier 8 Czech heavy tank TNH 105-1000 has been dishing and receiving some serious beatings, knocking out an enemy Super Hellcat before succumbing to the enemy T-29 themselves. Returning to our subject, Manti has elected to take a more protected route towards the enemy, and it's probably just as well, because they had a German tank destroyer on their arse. The scores remain close and the enemy is still just in the lead, but they can neutralise the enemy's vision advantage by playing the rocks near the friendly cap circle. Out of support and outgunned, the friendly Super Hellcat makes a dash for safety, but is brought low by a barrage of fire. This act did not go unavenged, however, as friendly artillery knocks out the enemy SU-130PM in turn. Manti makes it to the new front line, ready to take on whatever crosses from the Church Island. But since nobody on either side is exactly a hit point juggernaut, it becomes increasingly important to play with cover and support and not get singled out. An act of solo bravery is likely to bring them unstuck with just 1 or 2 enemy shells. Every vehicle lost in the last few minutes has been a 1-for-1 trade, squeezing the margins of the game ever tighter. A Super Hellcat now appears to reinforce the enemy T-29, and at this point in time Manti is probably regretting not bringing any high explosive shells, as the APCR that was probably meant for the T-29 ricochets harmlessly off an otherwise soft target. So with problems in the front, problems in the back, but not for too much longer, because fortunately they still have a fairly adept rearguard there, in the form of the Stridsvagn S1, turning up to scratch that particular itch, specifically the enemy ELC even 90. So with that in mind, Manti can still focus on the defence against an island where we do believe that 2 enemy vehicles are holed up. As the Stridsvagn S1 proceeds down the rail line, they identify the Steyr-Waffenträger coming under fire themselves from artillery. A nice meaty hit into the Steyr-Waffenträger present quite a fine opening round. However, this could be a difficult position for the Stridsvagn S1. The T-29 making its appearance on the island again, having withdrawn from its earlier position. Stridsvagn S1 moves around behind the rail station, trying to get a bit of hard cover between them and where they think the Steyr-Waffenträger was, before launching their dash down the opposite side of the rail tracks. They're moving south, they're trying to get a bit of a flanking position on this Steyr-Waffenträger. Manti summons the ISU 122S to maybe do a bit of a group push on the island. As far as we know, there are 2 enemy tanks there. The T-29 is still playing the ridges, And it now appears that the Super Hellcat is in the mid. They've joined the Stowage and engaging the Stridsvagn S1. The Tier 8 Swedish tank destroyer is in real trouble here, getting knocked out by the Super Hellcat. But this means that that island is only occupied by the T-29, so the ISU-122S makes its move. Seeing this opportunity for a 2v1, Manti runs in for the fight as well. Now this might be a little bit of bravado from the ISU-122S, but they've been able to get in and they've been able to get under the rocks, under the guns of the T-29. Manti moves in, trying to put it under crossfire, but the best way to get out of a crossfire is to push your way directly out of it. And that's exactly what this enemy T-29 is doing, charging straight at the ISU-122S, knocking it out, but receiving a shell for its troubles. This leaves it on 500 hit points, a little over 2 shells worth of damage from Manti. Rounding the corner, Manti manages to get a nice side shot in, a bit of a low roll there, so we still definitely have 2 shots that we need to take. A nice lower frontal plate shot for the T-29. T-29 moving, aiming, sends a shell into the engine deck. As Manti moves back towards the water, getting that upper frontal plate shot, and it knocks out the T-29. Unfortunately, in the meantime, the enemy Super Hellcat has knocked out their artillery support, so it's just Manti now in a 3v1 to close. Swing and a miss from the Super Hellcat, rather swing and a bounce. Manti turns the gun, fires, and leaves the Super Hellcat now in a one-shottable position. I'm not quite sure where that Steyr is, but the Super Hellcat is determined to play. Fortunately, Manti has the drop on it and knocks it out, claiming their 4th kill of the game. Moving to try to get a bit of hull down action going, they spot the Steyr off their 9 o'clock. Swing and a bounce from the Steyr and interestingly, the enemy artillery fired and fell short, actually stunning the Steyr. Manti rounds the corner, eats a round for the Steyr, but sends it back to the garage for their 5th kill of the game. This is now just Manti and the self-propelled gun. Now, Manti only has 137 hit points left, so that is well within one-shottable range from an enemy artillery piece, so they do have to be super careful here. Heading towards the rocks here, there are a lot of opportunities here for the enemy self-propelled gun to hide and lay ambush, assuming of course that it's pointing in the right direction. Cresting this ridge, they're able to find it, they send a shell into its rear. Can they reload in time before it gets behind the rocks? No. And now it's basically anyone's game. If the S-51 is aiming left and Manti goes left, well, that could be a problem for the S-51, but Manti's going right, the gun's going right, and he knocks out the S-51 first. So, brilliantly played there by Manti of the Flying Squirrels clan. Let's take a look at the results. And a well-deserved Ace Mastery badge there for CEO Manticore Uranus of the Flying Squirrels clan. They picked up a few Battle Heroes medals as well, with a Steel Wall medal for receiving the most hits. It needs to be at least 11 out of anyone on the team, and they end up surviving. They've also picked up the High Caliber medal for causing damage that's equal to at least 20% of the total hit point pool of enemy vehicles. In this case, nearly 4,000 hit points of damage inflicted. They've also picked up the Top Gun medal for accounting for at least 6 kills on the enemy team. A few badges of merit have also passed through CEO Manticore Uranus's hands. The Spotter medal, unusually enough for a heavy tank, where you inflict at least 1,000 assist damage on enemy vehicles by spotting them. They pick up the Hand of God medal for surviving and winning the battle, having received damage from at least 4 different enemy vehicles. They picked up the Duelist medal for destroying at least 2 enemy vehicles that have caused damage to them in turn. They picked up the Fire for Effect medal, which tends to go hand in hand with the High Caliber medal, as well as the Shellproof medal, which also goes hand in hand with Steel Wall. Having a look at the team scores, this was a rather convincing top placement by experience points, significantly outstripping anyone else on the team. But coming in second, notable mention was the Stridsvagn S1 that was such a reliable rearguard through that battle. Special mention on the enemy team to the ELC Even 90 and T29, who were playing to their role brilliantly but not carrying quite hard enough today. this battle really came down to the wire, the last 167 hit points, so it really could have been anyone's game. Having a look at the detailed report, quite a profitable game here for CEO Manticore Uranus. Now that's owing to a couple of factors. They did have battle payments going. They did have a personal missions payout there for what appears to be a yield of 140,000 credits, but once you take those two bonuses off, you're looking at a profit of about 56,000 credits, which is still an excellent game considering the amount of premium ammunition expended in the course of this battle, which I guess when you're bottom tiered and your back's to the wall, their back was to the wall fairly consistently through that game. So you got to do what you got to do to get that victory. So well done there to Manticore Uranus of the Flying Squirrels clan. And if you've got a replay that you'd like to see featured on the channel, please reach out over Discord or any of the links below. We'll do our best to sort you out. In the meantime, I do hope you like some of the additional flair we've been putting into our videos. Unfortunately, it does tend to prolong the production time, so I don't think we're going to do it with every one, but well, at this point in time, I've got new tricks that I'm showing off, so we'll see how we go. So please let us know what you think in the comments below. In the meantime, take care out there.